Right, all set up to start building the crossover for the Hadleighs. You've seen this setup of mine before that I built. I'll quickly explain it again. Input positive and negative, so this gives me a positive and negative rail, and then here I can input my woofer, mid-range if I'm doing a three-way, and a tweeter, so I'm just using the tweeter and the woofer, which basically gives me these terminals and these terminals, so I can build a crossover up on this board. And I've got my box full of components there, so I can switch components in and out, measure and test, and yeah, build something that works on axis, off axis, blah de blah. So yeah, I'll stick this on time lapse and we'll go through it. Yep, so measurement space set up, microphone's a meter away from the speaker, tweeter axis, room treatment is up, very dead in that little space, so it works well. Right, okay, let's get cracking and see what we can do with this new tweeter and the original woofer. Should be interesting. Right, I've tried a number of things and I just can't get any better than that. And the long and the short of it is the woofer won't play up high enough and that tweeter won't play low enough. I suspect that tweeter has a problem, although they're both doing the same. I think they have ferrofluid in them, and I think it's probably gone a bit wrong because that tweeter is rolling off at 10k pretty steeply, and it's just not working in this this two-way. So yeah, a bit of a bum really, but them are the breaks. That's how it works sometimes. So I think we're going to have to try a different tweeter. Way it goes sometimes. Sometimes speakers just won't work, or drivers won't work together, and it doesn't seem to matter what I do. You know, testing the tweeter with no filter on it, it just rolls off too early to meet that woofer comfortably. Probably what's not helping is the tweeter as well as an 8 ohm driver, and the woofer is 4. Most tweeters you have to attenuate anyway, and I hope that was the case, but its output's just too low. If it was higher, then I could probably use it lower, but it's just not working out. So yeah, a bit of a crapper really, but that's how it goes. So back to the drawing board in terms of a tweeter that we can use in this. So anyway, onwards and upwards. Right, so I've taken one of these apart after measuring both of them again side by side. One of them is very different to the other, so I'm assuming this one is failed or failing. I'm not going to get another one, and the bummer is that obviously I've modified the front cutout to suit this tweeter. But a long time ago, when I was doing my DM4s, I made using the bezel from a Coles Super Tweeter, a new version, which I was going to use, but then found some replacement tweeters. And these are made by Dayton Audio, and whilst very small, they've got a little neodymium motor structure on the back. These measured really well, and I still have them. And as luck be it, the cutout here where the dome went in fits straight in there. How's your luck? And this plays quite low, so I think I'm going to put this in there and we'll give it a shot and let's see how it works out. Right, so I've temporarily put that in the back, put it all back together. Let's give it a whirl. Let's see how that works, because we've got that cutout now and I like the look of this in there, so I think we're kind of locked in really. But let's see. Sorry, this is all wobbly cam. That is our new tweeter, and as you can see, that is really good down to 2K, maybe 1500 hertz. Really good. That's what we were looking for. So plenty to play with there. So yeah, I can crack on with this properly now. So I'll put proper pictures of these measurements up, but that's our raw response of our woofer and the raw response of our tweeter being cut off at 1500 hertz. So they overlap nicely, so we've got plenty to play with here. So hopefully we can now do something decent. So I've got my measurement board all ready, so let's try again. Right, this is what 2.5 hours of work looks like, and this is where I've got to, and it's really difficult, and I'm trying to work this dip out. So if I look at the raw woofer's response, it rises up here, dips, and rises again before rolling off naturally. And this peak and this dip and this peak is the problem. So I've let me turn that off. I've folded it down, so this is where the woofer is at the moment, but I need to flatten this off further. So I've still got that hump that you saw up here in the raw woofer's response. If I pull my increase the inductor size and pull my roll off further back here so it begins, it does help, but it makes this dip even bigger. And this knee here is causing this rise here. I mean, we're not bad. I've got this reasonably good. The tweeter behaves brilliantly. So the purple response is the tweeter. I'm using a second order filter on that at the moment. I might try and use a third order, let that run a teeny bit lower, so to 2K, and then really roll it off hard. That might lift this and reduce that, I don't know. So it's tricky. Actually, the original inductor seems to work out better than other inductors I've tried. So I can't remember the value of this. I think it was 0.6, something like that. So stepping up, yeah, it doesn't really help. The capacitor I've used on this, so second order slope, at the moment is actually 72 microfarad with a resistor in front of it, just trying to shape that knee that I've got there. Tweeter is second order. I've got, I think, a 7 at the moment there. Can't remember that inductor value, but the tweeter's really well behaved. It's not the tweeter that's causing me the problem, it's the woofer. Really, it just doesn't want to play above 1000 hertz without having this lump in it. So yeah, getting there. I will keep persevering. Right, so while I'm having a little issue with this middle this dip where I'm trying to make the drivers meet each other, it's not a phase issue. Our crossover point is about 1800 hertz, which is good. I can't really run the woofer up any higher without this lump causing me a problem, which is a little bit there. But otherwise, distortion, we're really clean where we weren't before. We had lots of cabinet ringing. Our spectral decay so far is really clean because we've improved the cabinet. I'm using really good, air core inductors, polycaps on this crossover. So yeah, I think we're getting there. Anyway, I'm going to leave that for today and pick it up tomorrow. Right, sorry this is little clips, but right, back to where I was sort of yesterday. So I've got the crossover as it was originally, as Celestion had it, so with the inductor and the 20 microfarad cap, second order. I've put together a second order on the tweeter, which is a 4.7. I've mucked around with the inductor a little bit, a 0.21 millihenry and a 2 ohm resistor, so second order on the tweeter. And this is where we are. So brown is the tweeter roll off, the purple is the woofer roll off, and we're summing nicely. So our crossover point at the moment is about 2800. Other than this lump, looking quite good. So I think I'm going to play around with a notch filter and see if I can pull that down, because I don't think I can do anything with the order of the roll-off on the woofer to help that without creating a big hole. And you can see that hole which I was having yesterday is here, and if I pull this down more, that will develop, and yeah, we don't want that. Right, so I've crudely assembled a notch filter across the woofer. So we come into a resistor, an inductor, a cap, then back down to the ground of the woofer. So the idea of that is you tune the inductor and the capacitor to a resonance, so that will let a frequency through, a narrow band, depending on where you cut the top and the bottom off, which is dictated by the values of these, and then how aggressive that is you can control with a resistor. And these are just first order 6 dB roll-offs on the bandpass. So that's how the notch filter works. Just guessing at some values, you can see I've pulled this lump down, but I've also taken the dip with it. But here, whilst the dip has come with it, we are a better volume here now. So we have pulled some of this out, but I need to widen this. So I need to muck around with that inductor and cap value to basically allow more of this to come through and here. So a bit of trial and error, but the results initially, I think we're going to get what we want. Right, I think I'm as good as I can get this with the way that woofer's behaving. There's only so much you can do to force a driver to do what you want. So that's, hang on a minute, where are we? That's what I've ended up with now as a frequency response, which I'm really happy with. This little dip here is the only issue. It'd be nice if I could spread it out a bit more, but I'm trying to force that woofer to do something it can't. And you can't fill in peaks. Well, you can to a degree, but really you have to pull down other parts of the frequency response to flatten things out. And if I keep mucking around with that, the speaker's going to have no sensitivity whatsoever. So this is the tweeter's response. So I'm using a second order slope on the tweeter, which works well. And this is where our woofer is. So this lump or dip here is what's causing me the problem. If I fold this down further, I cause problems with the tweeter. But we've got a teeny bit of cancellation there, but we're summing quite well. So what we've ended up with, second order on the tweeter. The tweeter's connected out of phase, that's necessary. Otherwise there is a big suck out at the crossover frequency. So 4 ohm resistor, 4.7 microfarad cap, 0.21 millihenry inductor. So second order on that tweeter. Second order on the woofer as well. So we've got a 0.8 millihenry inductor. So I can't use the original one, it's too small. A 25 microfarad cap, so that's second order arrangement on the woofer. And then my notch filter, which goes across the woofer, and that pulls down that big gap, or that big peak I should say. 1.5 ohm resistor, 1 millihenry inductor, 2 caps making a 50 microfarad, and then back down to our woofer ground. So if I take the notch filter out of circuit, I'll show you the effect that has. I'm sorry I'm doing this all wobbly. So without the notch filter, that's what we have. So the notch filter is pulling this down. I can adjust the value of the inductor to change the effect here, but I'm still fighting the natural roll off of the woofer, or that dip. So yeah, that is necessary. Ultimately that does reduce the sensitivity of the driver, but it's the only way we can get from that to that. So there you go. I'm going to do some off-axis responses now, because I'm hoping some of that dip might come out, but I don't think so. But yeah, what we're looking at, distortion, yeah, really low, and I mean this is all crocodile clipped together, so pretty good. Spectral decay, very clean. So yeah, 30 dB down, we've hardly got any ringing, so the cabinet work has helped, and that extra bracing and just better components, cleaner components. So we're not looking bad. I'm really happy with that. And I've mucked around with this now probably for 6 hours in total, and I think I've got it as good as I can get it. So I think we're going to leave it there. So that's what we've ended up with to get this speaker to work as well as I can. Right, I'm really sorry, but I've put the Hadleigh crossovers together and didn't film it. I just wanted to get on with it, and yeah, it's been a busy day, and you know, when you're kind of doing this away from your normal client work, yeah, you sometimes just want to crack on. But anyway, it's all together. I've squeezed it on the original board, which in hindsight I probably should have just cut a new one, just with the 2 holes for the fixing studs, so I could just bolt it back in. But yeah, anyway, I'll try and tell you what's going on. So we've got a second order high pass and low pass filter, and a notch filter on the woofer, so that's why it looks more complicated than a kind of normal two-way would be. So we come in here on our positive, through this inductor out to our woofer positive, with this capacitor here down to ground, which goes underneath the circuit board and out to our woofer. And then we have a notch filter which goes across the woofer. So we have a resistor here, into an inductor, into a big 50 microfarad cap, down to ground. So this section here and that cap is all the woofer. So second order low pass and a notch filter with first order slopes. And then on the tweeter we come in here through a resistor, through a poly cap, out to our tweeter, which is out of phase. Also pick up this 0.21 millihenry inductor down to ground. So just second order on the tweeter. Tweeter was a really easy driver to work with, the Dayton Audio driver that I ended up using, but controlling the original woofer and making it meet and have a reasonable roll off to work with this tweeter involved this notch filter, so it was quite tricky. But yeah, there we go. So next step is to put them in and have a listen. Right, so that's one of the little Hadleighs fully back together now. So our new crossover boards are bolted into the back. And what I'm also doing, as you can see, I've put some new 4mm Allen bolts in here to match up with the Allen screws I'm using for the tweeter. So what I'm having to do is just press out the original Imperial insert, and I'm just pressing in some new 4mm metric inserts in the back. Also the Imperial ones they've just come loose, and then we have new 4mm Allen bolts and 4mm Allen screws. So yeah, they go in quite nicely. So all I use is just a G clamp to squish them up and put them in there. So yeah, that one to do now, but I think that's looking pretty pucker. I do like the look of these. They're just a good looking speaker, nice size. So yeah, let's hope they sound good too. Right, so they've just had their last coat of oil because they're basically done now, and I think they've come up really well. So we'll let that dry off, and then it's time to give them a listen. So the badges are on the covers now as well. That's the one that was broken that I had to repair. Come out pretty well. So yeah, let that dry out and then give them a listen. So the little Hadleighs are completely finished, and I'm blown away by them. When they first arrived, I just loved the shape of them, the size of them. You know, they're a good looking little speaker, and having sanded the back, oiled them, new covers and everything, they're looking fantastic. And on a pair of stands, even these old things, they're looking really good. But the sound, I'm blown away. I really am. Our little tweeter, the Dayton Audio tweeter, has worked fantastically, and the notch filtering we did on this woofer to control that lump has worked brilliantly. They are just an enjoyable listen. We're playing this reasonably low and they are just sounding fantastic. String instruments, guitars, violins, things like that, lovely, really good. Female vocals, really locked into the centre. They're surprisingly spacious. I'm quite shocked at that, how open, how airy they are, and they're only a foot away from the wall. They've got good bass presence. They're quite fast. I was worried that this woofer, being a very kind of steep cone, would be a bit like that, but it's not. They're sounding really, really good. Good crossover components. The sound is very clean. They're fast. If you play something like Take 5, Dave Burbank, it's just brilliant. The snare hits in that are fast. They're quite dynamic. They're just really enjoyable. I'm loving them. So yeah, really pleased with the way they've turned out. I bought these fairly cheap to do a refurbishment, and it's one of the Celestion, the older Celestion speakers that have kind of escaped me. I've never heard of them, and then came across them and just wanted to get a pair and work on them. And this tweeter upgrade has worked fantastic. The big dip in the response we had with the old cone tweeter, all gone. So this is working fantastic, and I'm really pleased with them. And normally when I have a speaker in like this that I buy myself, I do the upgrade, have a week or so listening to it, and then I sell them, let someone else enjoy them. But I might struggle to sell these because they're just lovely little things, and yeah, they're really good. I love them. So yeah, I'll put some stills up of the finished product, but these have turned out so well. You know, I'm tempted to offer this crossover upgrade, but obviously it needs this tweeter. What I should have done is really cut a square that would take the place of the cone tweeter that was there, and fitted this tweeter into that. But really, by the time I realised these tweeters weren't going to work, and also one of them had a problem, I was too far in. I'd cut the holes, so I was kind of locked into this, but this has worked so well. So yeah, loving these. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll put the measurements up at the end, and I'm going to crack on listening to them. So yeah, well happy. Cheers.
you.